Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to the Movie Battleground. I am your humble host, player extraordinaire, soon to be guest host of the year. All the belts, all the records for me personally. That's how humble I am, Austin Pez Howell. Very happy to be hosting this match tonight. Two guys I'm actually very familiar with here in the Battleground, up and coming players who could really each use a win, but have a lot of personality. They've got a lot of talent, and I can't wait to see what they do against each other. We've got Dean Lewis taking on Jacob Barber, two guys who are looking to get their first win here tonight, and I can't wait to see what they do against each other. But I won't spend too much time bothering with all the minute details. Let's just talk to these guys one at a time, see what they have to say about joining us here in the Battleground once again. So let me introduce first, with a record of 0 wins and 3 defeats, coming us from across the pond, Dean Lewis. Dean Lewis, how's it going, sir? How are you today?
What's going on, man? Yeah, it's not bad. I'm glad that you mentioned the record there up top because I was sitting here trying to think: is it 3? Is it 4? It's not good that I don't know.
It's just 3. It's
I,
all right.
I need the one. I need the one. So yeah, I'm ready to go. I'm looking forward to this.
Well, you've got your chance today to get that first win. You certainly have the personality. You've gotten some points here and there in different rounds. I think you definitely kind of started honing your style. So, how do you feel about your chances today against Mr. Barber?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I feel like I'm kind of finding a groove. It's not necessarily a winning groove, but it's better than no groove. So hopefully I can start sort of reaping the benefits
Hmm.
of the momentum of, having played a few and
Hmm.
getting into the swing of it.
Yeah, sounds good, man. Any final words of wisdom for your opponent, Jacob Barber? Any last minute? You like to trash talk a little bit. Anything you want to throw out there before I bring in your opponent?
No, I'm not familiar with Jacob. We haven't really formally met in any capacity. I didn't do any research. I haven't watched any of his stuff. I wanted to go in, you know, on an equal footing, unless maybe he's been checking me out, in which case, not so much. But Jacob Barber, prepare to get the snip. Let's do it.
Oh man, I don't know. That doesn't sound too good. But anyways, we'll see. We'll see what he means by that throughout the match. Let me boot him out of here and bring in his opponent, the Barber himself, Mr. Jacob Barber. Bringing in here, my good buddy, a good buddy who I'm friends with, but that doesn't affect anything. I am not judging tonight. I'm simply hosting. He's doing a snip thing with your name. I don't know what he's doing.
See,
Yeah,
I hope he's
I feel
talking
like
about
I
hair.
hope he means the
I
hair and
hope he means hair.
not the other office visit that some people go to get at the doctor's
Yeah,
office.
because
I hope he's not saying that.
that could be awkward,
Yeah, that could be really really
especially since
bad.
we don't know each other.
Yeah.
And no, I haven't done any research either. So we are going into this on an equal footing, which I think
Mhm.
is extremely fair. Yeah, no, I've been away from debate for a while. I did do the TMNT debate, which
Mhm.
um, as of this recording hasn't been uploaded, but it's happened. And yeah, it was fun to get back into it. So I talked to Aaron. I was like, I'd like to do another a real debate, not just an exhibition, which is centered around one topic. And so here we are.
Well, no, and it's interesting. Yeah, you've only played 2 official matches so far, and this is your first match of this season officially. But you and I not only have a history over on the Movie Hero Network, but our both of our first matches in the Battleground. Well, we fought each other. It was our very first foray, and I didn't even know you really from Movie Hero at that point. That was kind of our first face-to-face meeting. Even then,
Right.
and we've of course. Very cordial with each other now. We literally do a show together and all that stuff. We had good chemistry. But you fought me in that first one. I thought you had a lot of potential. I know you've really tried to grow your research and your notes and things. And from what I've seen from you, we did we've done some other debates on other channels and things. And I think you've really improved yourself, man. How do you like your chances going in it tonight?
I not knowing Dean's very well. I don't know. Like I know that I'm prepared, and so I can say that I'm ready, and
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I have some good notes. I have some good points, but it all depends on how the judges feel, and may the best man win. Win or lose, I'm confident in the game that I'm going to play today.
Okay. Well, sounds good, man. Well, I'm gonna bump you out for just a second. Go over the rules here. I will see both you guys in just a minute, and we'll get this thing started. All right, and it should be a good match. All right. Say goodbye to Jacob Barber for just a second because I got some info I got to put up on the screen here because the movie Battleground, if you're not familiar, is a best of 5 rounds here. If you get 3 points in a row, we'll have 4 regular rounds. 3 points in a row, you win by a knockout, but you can also win via 3-1. If we have a tie, 2-2, after those 4 rounds, then we will go to this blind round that's so infamous here in the Battleground. So much fun. I've done a few of those myself, and of course, how it works individually. Each guy will get a 60-second opening argument, then in a 2-minute expansion, a 4-minute open debate, and then a final 60 seconds to close out their arguments. That is how that works. These guys are both, have played a few matches here and there, so we know how to do it. I'll have a timer up on the screen for both these guys, so I'm going to bring it back in. Gentlemen, any final questions before we get this thing going, or y'all think you're ready to go?
So, what did you mean by the snip? Did you
we
mean
may
hair?
need some clarification. I hope. Yeah.
You're gonna get cut short in your movie battle career.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Oh, I see.
Nothing weird and physical, intimate, nothing like that.
Okay, sounds good. Sounds good. All right, we'll go with that for now. But gentlemen, so your first question is gonna be something I know Jake is very familiar with, and I'm sure Dean is too. We're gonna talk a little Pixar, and it's a little strange question, just given some of the caveats of it. I'll put that up front and given the gentlemen's answers, and you'll see why. So we asked them, and then I'll put up the caveats here in just a second. It's a replay question. So what's the best Pixar film of all time? But there's a caveat to this because this question has been used in 3 different matches, and therefore all the ones that have been used are somewhat disqualified, so they had to pick some fresh picks. So what's the best Pixar film other than Toy Story, Toy Story 2, The Incredibles, Toy Story 3, Inside Out, Coco? So those are the ones that were not available for options. So just a little caveat for anybody wondering, well, why the hell didn't they pick Toy Story or Toy Story 3 or Inside Out or, that's the reason why. So that's what it is. All right, I will boot myself out, gentlemen. I'm gonna bring up your timer here. Excuse me. Put myself out of here. Get that. And get that solo layout. No, I don't want the solo layout. Oh, sorry. We'll edit that on post. Boot myself out. Forgot for a second that I have to hit stop cam. That's what I do. All right, gentlemen. But that's what we're going to do. Got you guys both on screen. Jacob Barber, you are technically, according to the records, the favorite going into this one. You chose to go first on questions 1 and 3, so you'll be going first here in just a second. So I will have the timer, as you can see, up in the corner of the screen, but I'll give you an audible time once time is out. But basically, Jacob, whenever you are ready for your 60-second open to the match, begin speaking, and I'll start that timer.
So I think the answer for best Pixar movie, even given the restrictions, is fairly obvious. I think the best Pixar movie is WALL-E for a number of reasons. I think this is the most unique Pixar movie that we've ever gotten, as it's incorporating various topics, like consumerism, nostalgia, obesity, a number of things. This is a movie that begins almost like a silent movie, as there's very little dialogue in those first 40 minutes. Yet we still get the emotion, we still get character development, and when we dive into that second half and we dive into those topics even more, it's done in a way that's not only entertaining, but it's also thought-provoking. We see this relationship develop between Eve and WALL-E, and it's genuine, and we find ourselves really caring about these 2 robots and rooting for them. This is a movie that not only appeals to kids, but it feels like the most adult Pixar movie as well. And because of just all those, I think it's truly just an achievement in film.
Okay, and that's going to be time for your first 60 seconds. Mr. Dean, over to you, sir. I will begin your 60-second opening whenever you start speaking.
Okay, so given the restrictions, I decided to pick the correct answer, and that is Monsters Inc. This movie is it's a classic, buddy cop adventure romp mixed with a coming of age. It's super heartwarming, really funny. You got Billy Crystal and John Goodman both at the peak of their comedic and and dramatic careers as well. To be honest, it's still relevant in pop culture today. Hasn't faded away like a certain other movie that nobody really talks about anymore. It's got everything for all ages. It's got a gnarly villain, you know, with Steve Buscemi. So many comedy greats sprinkled in this movie. Something for everyone. It's the ultimate Pixar movie, even with the restrictions if they weren't there.
All right, and that's going to be time on your opening 60 seconds. So we've got Wall-E versus Monsters Inc. Jacob, back over to you for your 2-minute expansion. However you choose to use that, whenever you start speaking.
Yeah. So Wall-E was nominated for 6 Academy Awards, which I think for an animated movie is just really good. It won Best Animated Feature, but it was also nominated for its screenplay, which at this point only 9 animated movies had been nominated for a screenplay award. I'm sure there's been a couple more since then. I just, only cared about up to this point. Wall-E won Best Picture from the Boston Society of Film Critics, the Chicago Film Critics Association, the Online Film Critics Society, and the Los Angeles Film Critics Association, where it became the first animated feature to win that award. In 2008, was a pretty good year for film. It was the first animated film to win Best Editing for a comedy or musical from the American Cinema Editors. The character of Wall-E was listed at 63 on Empire's 2008 online poll of the 100 greatest movie characters. Remember, this is a movie that came out in 2008, so the character made that much of an impact. Time listed Wall-E as its #1 movie of 2008, and in early 2010, Time ranked Wall-E #1 in best movies of the decade. You say no, but back in 2016, the film was voted 29th out of 100 films regarded as the best of the 21st century. Meanwhile, Monsters Inc. lost to Shrek for Best Animated. And speaking of Monsters Inc., you mentioned Billy Crystal's Mike Wazowski, but Mike Wazowski is not a good character. Mike Wazowski is a very selfish person, as you see in the beginning of the movie, where his first line to his best friend is insulting him, calling him fat. We see that he's selfish as he wants to drive his car to work, even though there's a scare shortage, which he should be very familiar with working at the scare factory. You see throughout the movie, he blames everyone, even though the whole situation is his fault because he's not a good worker. He is very lazy at work, and the whole situation could have been avoided if Mike was just better at his job and a better friend and just not somebody who only cares about himself. In Wall-E, we see a relationship that we care about.
All right, and time.
2 minutes goes by way too fast.
It sure does. 2 minutes goes by very quick. The fastest 2 minutes on the internet, ladies and gentlemen, and soon to be the fastest 4 minutes once we get to the open. But before we get to the open debate, Mr. Lewis, you have your chance for your 2-minute expansion, however you choose to use that, and I'll start that clock for you whenever you start speaking.
Mike is a bad character. He might be not the greatest guy, but that's part of the point of the movie. He develops. The characters in Wall-E don't develop because they're just programmed to say the same things over and over again, and the only meaning on them is we have to dig and put something, and project ourselves onto them. We actually get fully fleshed out, well-rounded characters that, have flaws. And also, you're talking about like the fat shaming and how mean they are, that we're addressing like those issues that Wall-E kind of beats you over the head with in a much more like blue collar, relatable way, And you're talking about all those awards. What fat shaming barrel are you scraping to find all these awards? I don't even know what these things are. Like, 2008 was a great year for movies. It's just, Wall-E wasn't one of them. Monsters Inc. made $577 million, and that's in the early 2000s, whereas Wall-E comes out in, sort of the renaissance of like blockbuster, cinema and movies making like 500, 600, 700, $800 million and stuff, and it still only made 512. So, I don't love the numbers, but sometimes you've got to let them speak for themselves a little bit. And, if we want to split hairs, Monsters Inc. also got a 96 on Rotten Tomatoes. Only a marginal 1 above your 95. But all in all, the statistics definitely back up the heart and, the cultural impact and all those things that we can't really measure, but they just stick with you, like the characters in this beautiful movie of Monsters Inc.
All right, it seems like that's going to be a concession of there. All right, gentlemen, we've come to my favorite portion of each round, the back and forth 4-minute open discussion / debate. Please keep it a true back and forth discussion. Don't do a 2-minute monologue or I'll cut you off, as I've had to do as guest host a couple of times. If I feel like you're going to do that, I will come on audio and tell you that. So please keep it a true back and forth. Let your opponent speak occasionally. But other than that, have fun, gentlemen. I will start the 4 minutes whenever the first person starts speaking.
You talk about
All right.
fat shaming, but it's done in a way that it's not mean. It's done in a way that it's kind of giving a message and talking about what we could
They're
become.
literally rolling around slurping on milkshakes the whole time. Like it
Yeah,
doesn't. There's
and
no nuance to it
we also see those
whatsoever.
two characters who they're here, but once they're once their monitors are off, their screens are off, they're seeing this beautiful world that's around them, and they're realizing, hey,
Oh
maybe this
wow!
isn't the life for us. Meanwhile, you got Mike Wazowski, who is, like I said, a very selfish character who only cares about himself. He wants to, get out of work and go with his girlfriend, and it's all about Mike. He does not once cares about Sully or even mentions anything about Sully. And oh yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know if Mike ever used those words.
Have you seen Mike's girlfriend? I'm no expert, but that is clearly the hottest of the monsters in that movie, which, by the way, has such an incredible array of like design and creativity. Not only like how it presents our world, but also their whole world, and develops this inner like bureaucracy and workings, and it just fully fleshes it all out, and you just treats it like just a blue collar environment, just regular guys, who are selfish and do want those regular, quote unquote, regular guy things. And they learn that there's more to that in the world, as opposed to Wally, which just tells us constantly how shit we are. You know, I don't want that from a
It's a
kids'
metaphor to
movie.
what we
I'll go and see Charismatic.
it's what we could become. It's not what we are. It's what we could become. And the animation in
But
this
we
movie
don't
is
see
so
that in the
stunning.
movie.
Once we get to space like that, and the stars, like they really took their time into this animation, and it is one of the most beautiful Pixar movies. Monsters Inc. is just the animation is an average Pixar movie. Like there was nothing breathtaking about that animation.
Wally is like the two environments over and over again. You've got a junkyard for half the movie. The movie that you say is unique because it's just got like a boring, like weird 2-act structure. Half of it's in a junkyard and it's all brown, and the other half, everything's just
Most of
silver
the
and floating
Monsters Inc. is
around.
at a factory.
Yeah,
You get like
like
10
a
minutes of them
living,
going through doors, but
breathe,
that's about it.
breathable factory. You feel like people have worked in that factory for years. They are getting grumpy. They are sick of their jobs. Coupled with all the great cast of voice actors. All these obscure character actors and some bigger ones like Steve Buscemi
Who,
and
by the
John
way,
Goodman.
Randall is such a dumb character. He can camouflage himself and he does not utilize that perfectly. He scares Mike. He knows Mike has the child, but instead of following him wherever he goes to where the child probably is, he goes off and does his own thing. Wally
He's
is
an
developing
idiot.
this
Yeah.
relationship between two robots that we care about, and they do it in such a way that is unique. Whereas Monsters Inc. I just wanted Sully to boot Mike to the curb and just get rid of him. I did not want that friendship to last.
Look, Randall's not a monster rocket scientist, okay? You said it yourself, they're in a factory. They're just regular Joes. But also they're personified in the forms of these, hideous monsters, which kind of like it makes it so much easier and digestible to poke fun at ourselves.
Time on the open debate. Time. It's all good. Sometimes you can't hear me come in there. Time on the open debate. Fastest 4 minutes on the internet, once again, ladies and gentlemen. Jacob, we will go back to you to close it out. You've got 60 seconds to get any last points you want to get in there, and I'll start that timer whenever you get speaking.
Wall-E is a masterpiece, not only in animated filmmaking, but filmmaking in general, bringing us a movie that deals with some heavy themes while also bringing us humor and a movie that the whole family really can watch and get enjoyment out of, but also provide some thought-provoking conversation. Monsters, Inc. is a story of two characters who you're supposed to root for, but really you find yourself rooting against one of them because they're just so self-centered and egotistical, and even if there is like some semblance of a payoff at the end, it feels like it's too little too late. The animation is whatever. Whereas in Wall-E, it's stunning that it's hard to believe it's only 7 years after this, after the release of Monsters Inc. Wall-E and Eve have a much more interesting relationship because, you know, say what you want, Eve definitely has way more growth as a character than Mike does. And Wall-E makes you root for the two. Whereas in Monsters Inc., you're rooting for Sully and you just want him to drop his friendship with Mike. Randall as a villain is just so whatever. And quite frankly, he's more interesting in Monsters University. Let's be honest. Wall-E, best Pixar movie.
Time. All right, time. Dean, close us out with your 60 seconds whenever you begin speaking.
Listen, you've got all these colourful, crazy characters juxtaposed with these everyday, mundane situations that just work so perfectly. It enhances everything that Wally's trying to say, but it just effortlessly blended into the story as opposed to just having this bland two-tone color palette of the brown and the silver. And how is that? That's not fun for kids to look at. There's not even jokes. There's no dialogue. There's nothing for you to really grasp onto other than this just inherent meanness. Mine's got the numbers. It's got the fun. It's got the action, the adventure, the comedy. What more could you want? Come on. Have a little Monsters Inc., everyone. It makes sense.
All right. Well, maybe we will have a little Monsters Inc. everyone. We'll close it out.
That's like the best closing line I've heard. Have a little Monsters Inc.
Have a little Monsters Inc. everybody. Close it out with a little Monsters Inc. Sounds good to me. All right, but we'll see if the judges want a little Monsters Inc. or want a little Wall-E. As I'm going to boot you guys out here and let's see what they have to say. All right, and I'm going to bring them in right now and see what they actually do have to say. We're going to welcome Chris Diaz, Noah McCausland, and the Spaceman, Alan Shepard. How's it going, everybody? If you guys could, I forgot to remind you guys of this at the beginning, but if you could, please write down who you're going to vote for before we go to you. Spaceman, if you've got something to write it down or on your phone, anything like that, whatever you got. He might grab that for a second. I'll give him about 30 seconds, let him go grab something. Good opening debate there from both of those guys. Between space, we're going to follow Noah running around his house, going all over the place. What's he doing around there? He's running all over the place. He's doing all kinds of stuff. Oh, he's got a whiteboard. Sorry about that. That's my fault, guys. I should have told you about that. This would be the portion where Aaron would be fact-checking and doing, that sort of thing anyways. Not really my bag.
No, I'm making dinner at the moment.
Yeah, he's making dinner. He's gonna make dinner, listen to some Pixar arguments. The whole thing is what it is. But it looks like you guys are ready to go. So, Chris Diaz, we're gonna go to you first. Who won it for you and why?
Just a tough argument. Both great choices. In the end, despite some BS, I went with Jacob because I think he'd take it against Mike. Could take it Mano and then talk about Wall-E the message and everything won me the argument despite I totally agree with him.
Okay. Chris goes with Jacob. Mr. McCausland, who are you going to give it to on this one and why?
I apologize. I am cooking dinner because I got out of work 30 minutes. Well, I got home from work 30 minutes ago.
Oh, no. He's a hungry growing boy. He needs food. I understand. Well, as long as you can cook and listen to some arguments, I'm fine with that. So what do you got for us, Noah? Who got it for you?
I'm going with Jacob as well. His argument was very persuasive to me. Just the way he talked about how Wall-E's just gorgeous and how it has this great message for not only kids, but adults alike. And it's just entertaining to watch, and it's very self-reflective. So I went with Jacob.
All right, so that is the 2 points. Dr. Spaceman, we'll get back to you in just a second, but we don't need your vote this time. We appreciate you, though, grabbing your stylus, doing what you got to do. I appreciate that. We'll come back to you next time, I promise. All right, so let's bump you guys out here and bring back in our competitors. So Jacob's going to grab that first point, but plenty of time to catch up, Dean. Don't you fret. We got more questions to come here. As speaking of that, we will go to another question about an A-list actor that has a very, very varied career, who I know personally, Mr. Barber is a big fan of, just from our dealings. So I'd imagine this was his strength that he picked for this match. Most likely, we'll see. But what we're going to do is we're going to ask a very specific question about this certain actor. Who would that be? Well, it'd be Hugh Jackman, and we're going to ask about Hugh Jackman's most underrated film of his career. So that is what we're going to ask about. We'll find out what these guys have in store for that. So let me bump myself out of here, reset our clock here, ready to go. Mr. Dean Lewis, you will be first on question number 2, sir. So whenever you are set, I will hit that timer for your 60-second opening.
Okay, so we're going to talk about a film that's not that long ago. We have a director that for some reason, I think his first movie was so damn good that every other movie they make just doesn't, just people just want to shit on it. People are just ready to hate it. And that movie is Chappie by Neil Blomkamp. And Hugh Jackman is in this movie. He's a fucking bad guy in this movie. How often do you get to see Hugh Jackman be a bad guy? The guy's just physically incapable of doing it. That's how good this performance is. He does something that doesn't even exist inside himself. On top of that, he's got a mullet. He's got mutton chops. He's running around the city. He's chasing after a robot with Sigourney Weaver. Write that on a piece of paper and tell me that shouldn't be printing $1 billion. This movie should have done better. And if it would have come out maybe a few years earlier or a few years later.
Time. All right, I did see some audible faces in the background of the green room when he said Chappie, but hey, I'm reminding the judges, don't base it on your own opinion. Listen to the arguments, please. Base it on the arguments. Thank you. That's all I'm going to say. Let the man make his arguments. All right, Jacob, let's go to you and find out what you got for your opening 6 seconds.
Yeah, so when I think of the term underrated, I think it means more than just like a Rotten Tomatoes score or a letterbox rating. I think we also have to look at movies that have just been forgotten about. And that's why I think the most underrated Hugh Jackman movie is Missing Link. Missing Link is a stop-motion animated movie released in 2019, starring, obviously, Hugh Jackman, but also featuring the voice talents of Zach Galifianakis, Zoe Saldana, Timothy Olyphant, Stephen Fry, among others. The story follows Mr. Link, who's a Sasquatch, and with the help of Sir Lionel Frost and Adelina Forthright, voiced by Hugh Jackman and Zoe Saldana, travel to the Himalayas to meet his Yeti cousins. It's a simple premise. But the movie seems to be forgotten about in the short 4 years since it's been released, and I don't know why. The stop motion animation is amazing. The script is actually really good, as there's a fair bit of humor as well as heart and emotion. The great character development, great voice performances, and something that you really expect, when you have a Leica production.
All right, and pause that for just a second. Let's go back over to Mr. Lewis. You got your 2 minutes to expand whenever you're ready.
Okay, so Mission Link is underrated. It's underrated movie, not unheard of movie. I never heard of this thing. How can anyone rate it when nobody barely even knows it came out? I wasn't even sure if this was a Netflix movie or not. It turns out it did have a limited theatrical release. And yeah, it's pretty by the numbers, like Star Wars rip-off script, dude like teams up with like an elder dude and they go on an adventure to discover, his true purpose, and then another dude dies, and then it sets up adventures going forwards, which, much similar to Wall-E. The most interesting thing about this movie is what happens afterwards. This whole thing just feels like a meander, just to kind of get to the point of it, as opposed to Chappie, which is like this fantastic, like high production science fiction movie, but it's shot from like a ground level, so you just feel like you're in it. It looks and feels like what that situation would be like, and let's face it, isn't too far off. We're talking about like the sort of like the urbanization and of this technology and the cultural ramifications is very prevalent now with a lot of this stuff we're talking about with AI. You know, this movie comes out today, it's a whole different story. And I do believe this movie will get the Blade Runner treatment where in 25, 30 years time people will look back at this movie and they'll be like, that was one of the peak sci-fi movies of that era, which, let's face it, we need more of those because it's a desolate landscape out there. We were in our own sci-fi wasteland of good movies. This was one of them. You all missed it.
All right. And time for Dean on his 2 minutes. Mr. Barber, we'll go back over to you for your expansion whenever you're ready.
The problem with Chappie is that I don't think it utilizes the correct people in the correct way. We don't focus on Hugh Jackman, Dev Patel, and Sigourney Weaver, who are clearly the better actors of the cast, but instead we focus on Ninja and Yolandi, who let's be honest, they're just not good actors, and unfortunately, they're just on screen too much of the time, and they're just not good actors. Their line delivery is cringy. Their interactions with the robot are just not good, as they're getting him to call them mommy and daddy, which is just every time he says that, I wanted to just turn my computer off. This movie gives you nobody to root for. Dev Patel's character is not a smart one, as he's leaving this robot with these criminals who only want to use him to make money and commit crimes and do a heist. Whereas in Missing Link, you have somebody to root for in Mr. Link, who wants to be known as Susan. His real name is Susan, voiced wonderfully by Zach Galifianakis. Yeah, and you see that character growth with Lionel Frost, voiced by Hugh Jackman, who he's only doing this because he wants to be accepted by the Society of Great Men, and that's, I feel like we've all been there. We've all tried to do something just because we're told, hey, you can't do that. Well, watch me, I'm going to do it. And then they go on this adventure, and it's not just an adventure to find Mr. Link's Susan's Yeti family. It's also Lionel Frost is going on a journey within himself, and he really does develop a friendship with Link, and it's really beautiful to watch. And no character in this movie feels out of place. No character feels wasted. There's moments in Chappie where it's like, why are we spending 30 minutes with Ninja and Yolandi when you've got Sigourney Weaver, who's on screen for maybe like 15 minutes of this movie, which is a shame.
All right, and time on the expansion. We'll go to the 4-minute open debate and discussion whenever the first person starts speaking.
So I want to rebut on, you say that they're unlikable, they're weird characters. Why do we spend so much time with them? I think that's kind of the point, is that, anyone can and will have access to this stuff. Anyone can have like a widespread cultural impact, and we personify that by, them imprinting this weird like mishmash of cultural, different things onto this robot and kind of, fucking with its head, which is, what we're all experiencing on a daily basis, is we're just being inundated with all these different, voices and all this different noise.
But it just doesn't make sense why Dev Patel, whose character name I cannot remember, so I'm just going to be calling him Dev Patel, leaves this expensive robot, this police robot, with these criminals when he has ample opportunities to get him back. The criminals, they send him off to this place and he gets beaten by other criminals. Like, why would you even put the robot at risk if you're going to use him to do a heist and get money because you have to pay this other criminal? There's so many baffling decisions in this movie that just don't make sense.
He's human. We don't always make like the most logical decisions, and that's part of what's so like cool about it, is that we're putting this robot at such a higher standard of like what we expect of it than ourselves, when we can't even do that shit. And how does that back and forth, is it stifles as much as it opens, possibilities up.
It still doesn't answer why they would make such bad decisions. Dev Patel's making bad decisions. The criminals are, Ninja and Yolandi are making bad decisions.
Yeah.
Neil Blomkamp is making a bad decision by, basically making those two the leads of your movie when they are not good actors. They haven't. I think they did a short film before this, but they haven't done anything since because people watch this movie and hey, let's maybe not make them leads. Maybe let's use them for the soundtrack. That's what they're best suited for.
I think he wanted less experienced actors, and you get a cool soundtrack as well. Just throw that in there, but he
The
wanted this to
soundtrack
feel
shouldn't be the best part of your
real and
movie.
natural. He wanted it to feel like a handheld. This is like two people who just found this thing in the fucking
But they didn't.
rubble somewhere.
They didn't find them. They used guns to get this, and then when Dev Patel has the opportunity to get him back, he doesn't. He comes back, and it's only Yolandi who doesn't have any weapons. And instead of bringing him back, he's just like, "Oh, I have to teach him. I'm gonna help you guys." There's nobody likable in this movie except for Sigourney Weaver, who's only on the screen for 15 minutes. Missing link. You see the character growth in Lionel Frost. As somebody who is selfish, but develops this friendship with Link, and with the help of him and Adelina, he becomes a much more selfless person. You see that at the end of the movie when they're going on this adventure, and he invites Link along, like, "Hey, let's go. We are now friends." There's just no likable characters in Chappie that we care about.
We're talking about character growth. Let's talk about Hugh Jackman's performance in that movie. He's doing something that we've never seen him do in anything else. He's playing this grey area character that does fluctuate from, different ideologies and different sides, and you see that push and pull. He's not just a likable guy, but he's not just this cold badass killer either. And
Yeah,
we
he's
actually
another
get
bad
to
guy in a
feel
movie
some.
that's full of bad guys.
No, but we actually get some depth to him. Both. It's grey. It's a metaphor.
Time. All right. Time on the open debate. All right. Time on the open debate. Let's go back to Dean Lewis. You can finish your thought there, whatever you were going for, in your 60-second closing argument, whenever you begin speaking.
Telling you now, Chappie is the Blade Runner of the 2010s. We're going to look back on this thing and we're going to be like, damn, that addressed everything that happened in pop culture and technology in the next 10 years after it. We're not going to look back at the missing link. The missing link is going to be missing, okay, because nobody cares about it. It's just a dime a dozen stop motion animated movie. If it's not Aardman, or if it's not Del Toro, then stop motion, it's generic. It's an art form and that's great, but no studios are really doing anything great. There's a reason this movie is just flew under the radar. It's it does you need a big budget to do this kind of stuff well, and this movie didn't have that. It didn't have the names behind it. It didn't have the marketing behind it. It didn't have the ideas.
Time. All right, Mr. Barber, close us out with this round with your 60 seconds whenever you're ready.
You say it didn't have the name, but it had Hugh Jackman and Zoe Saldana, who have been in some of the biggest franchises and movies of all time. But again, we have to look at the word underrated, and you can say what you want and make your own definition. But I think underrated, can include underseen, and I think, and forgot about, and this is that movie. But and that's a shame because Missing Link, it gets everything right. It's a Leica production who, Leica. They've only done their 5 movies, but they've been 5 for 5. Great studio. In Chappie, you have unlikable characters. It doesn't hold up because of the fact that Ninja and Yolandi are your main characters, and halfway through, you just want to turn this off. This was a 2-hour movie that felt like I was 4 hours into it by the time it ended. Sigourney Weaver's wasted. Hugh Jackman feels wasted because you should include him as the bad guy more and make us care about other characters more, but they don't.
Time. All right, guys. Nice round 2 there. Sounds good. Nice little back and forth. Yeah, I definitely appreciate the choices. Definitely maybe some movies I haven't seen in a while for sure. Definitely Chappie. I've got my Blomkamp set. but maybe I'll go back and watch it. We'll see what the judges think, you guys. I'm going to boot you guys out for just a second here and bring in our judges to see who won this thing. Let's go Noah. Let's go Spaceman. Let's go Chris. All right, guys, I'll give you just a second to compile your thoughts here. Any less second thoughts while we all wonder if Noah brought enough for the entire class, whatever he's eating, that stir fry rice. I mean, did you have enough to pass around, for the rest of us? I mean,
You muted.
Yeah, he's muted.
I for
But
sure
anyway.
have more. I have
Okay.
a lot.
He had a
I
whole
make
wok full of
leftovers.
that stuff. I know. Yeah, what a crazy thing. But guys, yeah, nice little back and forth there about Mr. Hugh Jackman. So let's see what you guys thought about that one. Noah, we will go to you first. Who won it for you this time and why?
A lot of the time was spent on Chappie, and I think Chappie is a piece of shit movie, in my personal opinion. I hate that movie. It was a waste of my time. But oddly enough, I think Dean defended it really well, and I think he made me feel like I was wrong, even though I know I'm not. And he was one of the arguments he was saying is there's a difference between being underseen and underrated. And I think he brought that up well, as well as just kind of mentioning that Missing Link is very boring and there's not a whole lot that goes on. And at least with Chappie, you have a different performance with Hugh Jackman. He's a different character than we usually see him as. He's a bad guy, and he really brings that to the table. But also, like, shit actually happens during this film and chase sequences and stuff. So I went with Dean on this one.
Okay. Dean gets a point from Noah. Spaceman, what you got and who won it for you?
Well, I applaud you, Noah, for being able to see through the shitstorm that Chappie was. It was one of the worst things ever. And I think Jacob hit all the right notes for why Chappie was so terrible. I agree that we could have heard more about Missing Link, but what Jacob said about Missing Link, I went, oh yeah, I remember that. Actually, I did forget about it. And I thought, oh, well, I'm going to watch this with my kids because it was kind of forgotten. And that to me is an underrated thing. So I think that fits within my definition and what he brought up as underrated well. So I went with Jacob.
Okay. Tied up here. We'll go to Chris Diaz for the tiebreaker.
Yeah, I applaud Dean at least for trying to make an argument about Chappie in a lot of words, but not underrated. But it was back and forth with me, and I kind of get both sides a little bit. So I went with Jacob. He shut down Chappie a lot. But he also brought up, the story of Hugh Jackman, brought up that action. But specific point, and I think Dean just didn't have enough point again. Missing Link besides just boring. Like there wasn't anything you could just say that made Chappie better than Missing Link. So Jacob.
Okay. Tighter one there with the 2-1. Appreciate you guys for listening. We'll go to our third question here. See what happens. Boot you guys out for just a couple more minutes and bring my competitors back in here. All right. Hey, good debate there. Pretty close. I once again, hey, Dean, I at least implored them to listen to the arguments. Keep your personal opinions out of it, as Battleground judges should do. Hey, you went for the goal. I appreciate that. So, all right.
I knew Chappie was a wild card.
Chappie's a wild card, but I could see the defense for it. So hey, things happen. But we'll go to another A-list guy for question number 3 here, as Jacob now leads 2-0 here in this one. We're going to talk about a guy who's in the last couple months teased that he might be retiring soon. For whatever reason he may be, he's kind of made a comeback lately with these Sonic the Hedgehog movies. We'll see if maybe he does another drama at some point before he retires. We're going to talk about Jim Carrey, but we're going to talk about the not so great side of Jim Carrey. We're going to talk about the worst Jim Carrey film, specifically of the 90s. So worst Jim Carrey film of the 90s, as I will boot myself out here, and we will find out what both these guys chose for this one. Jacob Barber, you will be back up first for question number 3. So I'll boot myself out here, and whenever you're ready, sir, I'm going to reset this timer here. And go ahead and give me your 60-second opening whenever you're ready.
Can't see the clock.
Oh, did I screw it? Oh, sorry. I got you. Didn't start it yet. It's all good. I wasn't gonna start till you're ready. Go ahead.
So Jim Carrey in the '90s was great. He was cranking out hit after hit, which actually made this question pretty easy for me because I think there's one Jim Carrey movie that kind of stands out as the absolute worst, and that's Batman Forever. Batman Forever, the follow up to Batman Returns, which two really good Batman movies. But I think this one it just fails on every level. From the opening scenes where Batman and Chase Meridian are flirting, even though there's like a hostage situation going down. The overacting of Jim Carrey and Tommy Lee Jones, who Tommy Lee Jones is an overactor, and he just is absolutely silly in this movie. The introduction to Robin, it kind of falls flat. The script, it's just not good. The back and forth between Val Kilmer and Nicole Kidman is cringy at best. Not to I don't think Jim Carrey is believable as a villain in a Batman movie as he is in like a Sonic the Hedgehog, which he gets absolutely right. Batman's supposed to be dark, not cheesy. This isn't good.
All right, time. All right, let's go over to Mr. Lewis and see what he picked for Jim Carrey's of the '90s. Whenever you're ready, sir.
So I didn't find this question as easy as Jacob here. He had a very good year, Jim Carrey. I mean, not Jacob. I mean, maybe he did. I don't know. But I couldn't go with the Ace Ventura, The Mask, which is one of my favourite movies of all time. Couldn't go Dumb and Dumber. It brings me to Liar Liar. This is just one of those very generically, repackageable, sort of slightly high concept romantic comedies. These things are a dime a dozen. From like body swap comedies, to all anything like that. To like a Bruce Almighty or something like that comes later. It's just slightly estranged guy from his either parent or girlfriend.
Time. All right, time for Mr. Lewis for your 60 seconds. We'll get back to you in just a second. Going back to Jacob Barber for your 2-minute expansion on Batman Forever whenever you're ready.
Yeah, Liar Liar is far from the worst movie of the '90s for Jim Carrey, and I might go as far as to say it's his best movie from the '90s, just based off jokes and one-liners alone. This is a movie where the over-the-top acting is welcome, because I think the premise welcomes that. And nobody was doing it quite like Jim Carrey in the '90s. You got the pen scene, the pen is blue, the bathroom scene where he's kicking his own ass, the scene where he's getting pulled over, the courtroom scene at the end where he's able to use the fact that he can't lie to his advantage, even though it's the person he's defending isn't really a good person. There's quotable lines and memorable moments that we're still referencing 25 years later as some of Jim Carrey's best work. The physical comedy he pulls off is great. And there's just his delivery, the over the topness, it absolutely works in this movie. And it's just laugh out loud, one of his best movies, period. And then, going back to Batman Forever, there's really nothing memorable about this other than maybe it's a fun, bad watch. But when I tried watching it again, there was really no fun to be had, to the point where I actually turned it off because I was like, I'm not going to bother. It's not fun. Jim Carrey's overacting has a place, but it's not in a Batman movie, especially when the first two were so dark in tone. And this movie completely abandons that for cheesiness, over the top acting where, we don't really get the focus on Batman. We don't really, we see way too much of the Joker. Two-Face, who's playing a parody of the Joker, it feels like. And the love interest, she's not a good character. Chris O'Donnell, sorry, not an action star, I think. There's just nothing in this movie that sticks out to me other than over-the-top cheesiness that just does not belong in a Batman movie, but it does belong in a Jim Carrey comedy like Liar Liar.
All right, and time on Mr. Barber's expansion. Dean Lewis, going back to you for your 2 minutes whenever you're ready.
You see, the main thing that's good about Liar Liar is just like the one-liners. That's the problem with this movie. It's literally just like a whole bunch of like SNL skits, strung together. It's like somebody saw Jim Carrey, some producer saw how successful Jim Carrey was in '94 and said to a screenwriter, "I want you to write a movie for that guy. That's it. Like, I just want that guy to have an excuse to just act like a fucking idiot. Really well, admittedly, but the whole premise is just designed just for that. And then they've just taken some generic rom-com script and they've just stuck in all these Jim Carrey one-liners that some guys come up with sitting at a desk, that's not Jim Carrey. The most quotable line being "this penny's blue" is not really the highest point of great comedy writing, if you ask me. Batman Forever is, like it or not, the most comic book accurate Batman movie we've ever had. In the guise of a '90s movie, yeah, no, it plays about as well as any '90s movie. The love relationship with Chase Meridian is not much different to like a Sandra Bullock in Speed with Keanu Reeves. It's about the same. Okay, the action is great. We dialed up the action and the color from the first two, which is what everyone wanted. You asked for it, Jacob. You asked for it specifically, so that's what you got, and you can't complain about that. You got three villains, whatever. You've got Batman and Robin. Nipples aside, those costumes are gorgeous. There's a lot of art and the music is spectacular. Those movies are experiences, lights, colors,
Time.
glorious.
All right, time. And let's go, gentlemen, to our 4-minute open debate and expansion. I will hit the timer whenever the first person starts speaking.
First of all, I was 5. I was asking my parents to take me to see Toy Story, not Batman Forever. So no, I wasn't asking for it. And if I was older, I would have said, "Hey, no, let's keep this as the same tone. Let's keep this as what works for Batman and Batman Returns." I understand, you got a different director involved, and it's not going to be the same. But you can have that same style, that same tone. Nobody was.
That's not what we wanted.
The villain.
That's not what we wanted from Batman. We don't want, Danny DeVito puking up green blood, dying on the floor, while Michelle Pfeiffer's ripping out Christopher Walken's tongue or whatever's going on.
Apparently we did because it's better received.
It wasn't. No, Batman Forever made a lot of money. It was so music with the marketing campaign, the toys.
Transformers is one of the most successful franchises in the world. That doesn't mean they're good movies. Money does not equal good.
But this has all of that on top of, the villains literally brought to life straight from the page. With the biggest stars of the time. Drew Barrymore. Drew Barrymore was in this movie. Nobody remembers
Mark Hamill's Joker more than he's giving us a Two-Face performance. You completely abandon the tone of the first two that work. And yeah, I know Joel Schumacher is the director now. Val Kilmer is the Batman. We don't have but you don't have to change that much of it. Liar Liar is, you say it's a compilation of SNL skits, but there is a real story here as well, as he's trying, to fix that relationship with his son, because his son does love him, and he wants to fix that, but he's just tired of his dad being a liar because he's a lawyer, and part of being a lawyer is sometimes you got to twist the truth a little bit to get your point across.
I can't believe you would slander Mike Wazowski like that, but you would stand by Jim Carrey and Liar Liar and how much of a terrible father he is in this movie. He's just awful.
No, he's a terrible dad, but he's learning. He's learning and he's growing as he finds out that, hey, maybe there is something to this truth telling. Maybe there is something that I need to look at myself. Whereas you bring up Monsters Inc. again. Mike Wazowski didn't do that till maybe the last 10 minutes of the movie. And Jim Carrey is learning and growing as a person in this movie, and it's really funny, and there's heartfelt moments as well.
Tell you, after that wish goes away, there's no way anyone is trusting Jim Carrey again. That whole heartwarming story is just shot to shit immediately after the camera stopped rolling. It's just so unbelievable. You can't get, emotionally invested in it. So the drama doesn't really pay off because it's like, how would this guy be able to operate in a court of law? He's having some kind of seizure all over the floor. Like there's just no way I can't get
Because
invested in
he's
this.
able to
And if I
operate
want a
because until
cartoon,
his
I
son
at
makes
least
the
want it
switch,
to
he's,
be Batman.
he's one of the best lawyers, and people are choosing him. That's why he's able to operate in a court of
The
law.
man's like clawing his own face and screaming in the middle of the proceedings and stuff. Like it's just not.
And
That's just not fun for me for 2 hours.
and
Like
it's a 94-minute movie. It's not
it's
2
not
hours.
fun to me for 94 minutes of a movie that I research.
It's no, it absolutely works. And you say he shouldn't be allowed, but he wins because he tells the truth. He learns and he grows as a person. Batman is just full of overacting, cheesy villains, cheesy comedy, terrible love interest. Val Kilmer is not a good Batman. There's just moments and that don't work. That opening scene where the other guy is in the safe with him, he is just so terrible. Oh, it's acid! Like that's just not good line delivery.
All right, and let's go to Jacob Barber. Let's start to wrap this round up. Jacob, you got 60 seconds to close it out.
Liar Liar is highly memorable for all the wrong reasons, whereas Batman Forever is highly memorable for all the wrong reasons. The physical comedy that Jim Carrey's able to do, the one-liners, it all works, and his delivery, it all works, and we're still referencing them, we're still quoting them today. There's not a quotable line from Jim Carrey in Batman Forever, which is one of his staples from the 90s. You do pick out almost any movie besides Batman Forever from the 90s, and you're able to quote something from it, which is what makes him such a success in the 90s. Batman Forever, it's just a slog to get through. It completely abandons the tone of the first two and goes with a more cheesy comedy route, which doesn't work for a Batman movie, which is why they really haven't done it since then, except for the Lego Batman movie. But that's a movie marketed towards kids, so obviously you're going to go comedy there. Tommy Lee Jones is overacting, which he shouldn't be doing. He's a very serious actor. He's giving just the worst performance of his career, trying to emulate Mark Hamill's Joker, which give us a two-faced performance. Jim Carrey, over the top acting, doesn't belong in the movie.
All right, Dean, close us out with your 60 seconds for this round whenever you're ready.
You say that Val Kilmer is not a good Batman. I would argue that he best embodies, both like the Playboy persona and the deep brooding darkness. Whereas like the first two Batman movies, had that darkness, like say, spewing out Danny DeVito's guts. Val Kilmer internalized it. You could just feel that bubbling, weirdness and darkness under the surface. And he goes through that arc of like, having to come to terms with his childhood trauma, and we get that through his relationship with, what's her name, Nicole Kidman, and who also happens to be a therapist and all that, and we juxtapose the darkness of that with these crazy over the top villains, and we really just like explore. This movie doesn't get enough credit for how much it explores the expanse of the psychology of the Batman mythos.
All right, and time. That is going to close it out, everybody, for this round. Looking good there. Yeah, Batman Forever versus Liar Liar. The correct answer, in my opinion, is The Cable Guy, because that is not a comedy. It is a horror film. That is a straight-up horror film. It creeped the shit out of me last time I watched it about a year ago. Oh, my God, is that not a comedy? But anyways, just giving the judges a chance to kind of compile their things. Great argument, guys. Great discussion, and we'll see what happens here. Jacob's kind of got a game point here. We'll see if he closes it out, and as I will bump you guys out, let's bring in Dr. Spaceman first, then Chris Diaz, then Noah McCausland. Yeah, Spaceman, you're going to be up first. Give you guys just a second to compile your final thoughts if you need it. Two very memorable movies here. Could be a difference of opinion again if you think one's worse than the other one. But hey, let's see if the arguments swayed anybody one way or another. It was a good debate there. But Alan, we'll go to you first. Who won this one for you about Jim Carrey and why?
This was a good debate. Way more back and forth between about each film and the defending it and then shutting down of Jim Carrey's performance in each. And I thought Dean really squeaked it out there. So I'm going to go with Dean.
Okay. Hey, point to Dean there for Liar Liar. Okay. Chris Diaz, where'd you go?
It's a really good debate. Two very different choices. I respect both for picking two different choices. It's funny, to the end of the closing argument and the debate, I went with Jacob just because he pointed out more of a Batman Forever than Dean does point out, liar just screaming for terror, then he had to grab his out for 90 minutes. And I see Jacob had, like, Tommy Lee Jones, Chris O'Donnell did takedown at the badass team to over the topness. So, yeah, Jacob.
Okay, tying it up there. Go to you, Noah, for the tiebreaker on this one. What do you got?
I personally don't think this is as close as other people were saying. I think it's very clear who won this one. And with just about everything that Chris said, I agree with. I am also going Jacob. Adding along to the fact that he was able to. The point he made by saying Liar Liar is one of Jim Carrey's best movies in general and not just about the 90s. That was one of the big points, but he just kept hitting and hitting, and Dean made some good points, but I think he just wasn't able to recover.
Okay, Jacob is going to get the points for that one. Let me remove you guys here for just a second. And it's time to wrap things up because with a 3-0 knockout, your winner this evening is Jacob Barber. Jacob Barber, not only getting your win, sir, but coming back with your first win as a knockout, man. Congratulations. How you feeling about that, man?
No, I'm feeling good because I'm not gonna, you see knockout and you're like, oh, that must have been an easy match, but if you actually like watch it and listen to the arguments, like, no, this was close all the way through. Like, I'm, not knowing how Alan would have voted, that first round, this could have all been 2-1, which I think is the sign of a really good debate. Dean really surprised me with some of the points that he made, and there were times where I was like, oh shoot, he did really good. I would love to run it back sometime. If he wants to, because I think this was just really good. I like the back and forth. I didn't expect to come in and get a knockout. You don't come in expecting to lose either, but a knockout win, it feels good. I came more prepared this time than I did the previous two regular matches that I was a part of, and I think it paid off. So it feels good to get the win. It feels good to be back, and hopefully this is the start of good things.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're certainly off to, like I said, a good return. Getting a knockout is a good way to kind of make your presence known again, for sure. Coming back to the battleground, that's a good way to make a statement. And I was going to say, you seemed like you definitely brought your notes tonight. You definitely had some stuff prepared for sure. Especially listing off that stuff from Wally and some of those other things you had. So you took a page out of my playbook. You brought some notes with you. I appreciate that. But yeah, as a note guy, I can certainly appreciate that. But yeah, man, looking forward, man. Does this give you some more confidence going forward that you can maybe get to that 500 mark and maybe even squeak into the tournament at the end of the year? It's possible.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been somewhat confident in my debate skills because the previous two matches, you and Will, there were no rounds that were like clearly one-sided except for our horror round, which Michael Myers is the obvious answer there. But every round that I've been a part of has been like a 2-1, and so I've always been somewhat confident. But this is just like, hey, if I take the time and I actually prepare more so than I have before, like who knows what could happen.
Yeah,
so,
sounds
definitely
good.
confident.
You do have an opportunity, as I've been alluding to play again potentially before that tournament, and like I said, maybe get a wild card kind of spot in that tournament. You could definitely slip in there in a lower seed. You do have an opportunity to play again, whether it's an earlier slot in kind of like mid-July or a later slot in like August. Do you have a preference? Would you want to keep the momentum going and play earlier, or kind of stew on this one and play a little later? What would you prefer?
No, I'm down to play whenever. I think, as long as I can just take the time to prepare and be ready, I'll be ready to go.
All right, man. Sounds good. Well, congratulations again on getting this knockout victory, man. You seem very happy about it. So we'll see you next time, hopefully very soon in the Movie Battleground, man. All right. Bump you out here. I want to talk to your competitor here for just a second. Dean Lewis, again, tough luck here, here going 0-4. But again, I think you're better than your your record kind of suggests on the surface, because I think you definitely have some unique angles on some of your arguments. You definitely throw people off with some of your approaches that you do. I really thought you had a really unique argument with the Chappie thing, coming in with the AI argument and, the ground levels. I liked your approach to it. I thought you definitely could have taken that one. And like Jacob said, I think a lot of those could have been like a 2-1. So they really could have swung either way, man. How you feeling about this one, dude? I know you might be down.
Yeah, not bad. I knew straight away I was coming in with some hot picks for the answers to the questions today, so I accept that. And despite that, I managed to get some good momentum here and there, which isn't too dissimilar to my last match. In fact, I got so much good momentum that I actually managed to finish this match quicker than the last one. So if you look at it that way, I am making progress.
Right.
So yeah, no, I feel okay. I appreciate the comments that I got from the judges on the couple of points that I did get there, and I managed to not overthink it too much. I have a tendency to over prepare. I kind of came in a bit more from the hip this time. You can tell me if that paid off or not, but probably not. But it's fine.
Hey,
we're working on it.
I've seen competitors that literally go off the cuff in this thing, and they're really good at it. I mean, they can just spit it, left and right, and just come up with an angle right on the fly. And I've seen them win matches, man. I've seen it all. So whether you come in with pages of notes or whether you just have an idea in your head and you kind of spin a narrative, man, I think you are, again, I think you're stronger than your record kind of indicates, and I think you will get that win eventually if you choose to continue in the Battleground, man. I hope you do.
I'd like to think that there's a good style developing there that I could maybe hone in on if I want to like put in the extra work and take the risk of another L. I don't know, but we'll see.
Well, I will say you're a hell of a lot of fun to watch and to listen to. I will give you that. So you're very, very entertaining, and I hope the audience knows that. And when they click on your matches, they know they're going to get some good entertainment out of it, and maybe even some fun hot picks, some fun hot takes coming in and some nice hot picks for each of the answers. I always appreciate that. Keeps it interesting, man. So thank you for your time, Dean. Appreciate it. Again, really good job despite the thing, man. I thought it was a really fun debate, and you brought some fire tonight. So I certainly appreciate that. All right.
Yeah, thanks, man.
All right, so let me bump you out. I'm going to wrap this thing up. Yeah, really entertaining match tonight between two guys who were really looking to get their first wins tonight. Obviously, Jacob getting that one in definitive fashion with that KO, but a lot closer, as he alluded to, than you might think, with a lot of 2-1s. Some really good back and forth there. Dean's showing a lot of promise. I think he's got a lot of character. He's really fun to watch, and Jacob certainly making a statement, coming back from kind of a longer hiatus. I think he's definitely done his research. He's prepared. He's honed his arguments, and he made me proud tonight. And we had a match ages ago, it seems like, here in the Battleground. I've had like 13 matches since then. He's only had 2, which is kind of crazy. Shows you I've been gunning him out, and he's just been waiting in the bushes, just waiting for his time to strike. And maybe he'll be ready for a match with me someday. I'd love to have a rematch with him. But anyways, that's gonna do it for tonight. I am your humble host, Austin Pezhal. Please check out everything we've got over on TMG Entertainment. Subscribe if you haven't done so already. We've got some great matches up there you guys can check out. My title match with Amaru Moses. You can check out Jacob in that TMNT exhibition, a really fun one up there. So check that out. Go back in the archives, check out both of these guys' previous matches. We really got some great competitors here and some great stuff going up. So we appreciate you liking and subscribing everything you see here on TMG Entertainment. Once again, and when it comes down to the end of the year, guest host of the year, Austin Pezhal. I've been cranking them out, baby. Come on, give me those votes. I want all the belts, all the records, all the awards, everything coming my way. But I'm going to do my best to earn it. So appreciate you guys here on a great night of the Movie Battleground. We will see you next time.